Forgiveness requires the willingness to let go of grudges, resentments, and the desire for retribution. To put it another way, willingness is the gateway to the path of forgiveness. It's like our starting point. And as I said, I'll flesh that out later. So what we're going to do in our time together is look at what price will you pay if you refuse to forgive? And then we're going to look at what blocks forgiveness. Why are there so many obstacles? And then what helps you to forgive? And then finally, we're going to take a look at what does the forgiveness journey look like and what does it entail? Because it's a journey, it's a process. It's not a simple decision. So before I begin, I want to ask for the two things I always ask for when I speak. Please interact. If you have something to say that is relevant to the topic, please. If something stirs in you about your own journey that you want to share, a question, anything that you share will be helpful. Believe that, because we all have life wisdom. And when you share, we all benefit. And all questions are welcome. And they give me an opportunity maybe to elaborate on my point. So please, I don't wait till the end. I want dialogue throughout. Okay, deal? Okay, and the second request is serious. We must agree to confidentiality, because especially with this topic, people might share something deeply personal and ask for help with it. I want them to feel this is a safe space. So you must promise you would never repeat what anyone else says. You can repeat what I say. I might even like that, but not what each other. Is that a deal? Okay. I'm taking that, your promise, seriously, and I trust you. So before I begin, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and I want you to go within and ask yourself, what is the most, let's see, how did I put it here? What aspect of your life is in most need of forgiveness? Now that could be your need to forgive someone, or your need to ask forgiveness, or self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is very important, and many find it easier to forgive others. So I'm going to be talking about also, we got to forgive ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet. Please close your eyes. Go within. I want you to have your forgiveness issue in your consciousness, and then you can apply what I say to that issue. Okay. Okay, thank you for going within. Before I continue, I see some familiar names on Zoom, and I want to say hello to them. Lynn is often in this room. Hi, Lynn. Bev was with us last time, and Patty is with us every time. She cannot come in, but she's faithful on Zoom. And Helen, I don't know. Welcome, Helen. So we have at this point 4 women and Mark with us by way of Zoom. Okay, so here we go. We're starting with the prices you will pay if you refuse to forgive. Mind, body, and spirit. I'll start with spirit. There's a writer named Leanne Payne who's written a lot about forgiveness. And as Leanne puts it, the spiritual cost of unforgiving is a danger to your soul. her words, grudges and resentment deposit unholy debris on your soul. And then you cannot be an instrument of peace. And then, to my point earlier, it's almost impossible to have inner peace with grudges and resentment circulating. So the impact on your soul is tremendous. And in addition to that, you have less inner space spiritually to let love and blessings flow, because grudges and resentment clog up your inner life. No, we need to be aware of that, the inner life where everything begins really can get clogged up. And we need to look at it and take care of it. So the mental toll, what is the mental toll when you don't forgive? I do a talk called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, in which I talk about the 60,000 thoughts you have every day. Every thought has power. When you have grudges and resentments, guess what happens to your thoughts? A lot of them become negative. You're much more vulnerable to negative self-talk, which is the #1 killer of personal growth. So here we go again about the power. If we do not forgive, the repercussions are vast. And then the physical repercussions are also significant, because you're storing up hurt in the body if you're not forgiving, usually because I'll get to that later. Stored up hurt, holding on to resentment hurts the body in many ways. It lowers your immune system. It impacts blood pressure in your heart. And this is now recognized by places like Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic. This is scientifically proven that the inside impacts your physicality so much. And here's a quote from Dr. Frederick Lushkin at Stanford University's Forgiveness Project. Doctor says, the practice of forgiveness is essential for good physical health. Now, in terms of unforgiveness, let me say more. Practice of unforgiveness also makes you tired. It's a heavy burden to carry grudges and resentments. So you're more prone to fatigue. If it drains your energy, zaps your life force, you lose your zest for life. So with the stakes so high, I hope I've made it clear how high the stakes are. Why does unforgiveness still prevail? And this is where I want to just name 7 misconceptions that people have about forgiveness that could stop them and say, wow, if that's true, I'm not going to do it. Okay, here they are. The #1 is 3 words that have done so much damage in this area: forgive and forget. That is a fiction. It has a nice ring to it, but guess what? If you're raped, you're probably not going to forget it, but you can forgive. So if you ever hear anybody say, oh, just forgive and forget, I want you to challenge them. Say, that isn't real. You can forgive without forgetting. Eventually, the memories they'll fade a bit. Okay, the second one is, oh, if I forgive, that means what happened to me doesn't matter. It wasn't serious. That isn't true. Forgiveness is not acquittal of the bad behavior. Third, it means we must reconnect with the offender. Absolutely not. Because many people are not, I don't know how many, but there are people that are toxic and destructive. And it doesn't make sense to reconnect. Now remember, interrupt me if you have questions or comments, or if it isn't clear, okay? Okay, #4, if I forgive, that means I call the person that hurt you the offender. the offender gets a gift. Not true. You get the gift because you're getting free of all that resentment and grudge. The offender may not care at all, and it's not about them getting a gift. Now, in some cases, the person who hurt you will be pleased that you're forgiving, and then it's a gift for both of you. But it's primarily a gift for you.
Eileen,
Yes.
a lot of people that have hurt you don't even know they hurt you.
Exactly, Sharon. Yes, well put. And yes, and it helps to recognize that. Yes, absolutely. That's why there are so many layers and nuances to this, that it's good for us to discuss it in detail. 5, that the forgiveness exchange has to be in person. No. A lot of times it's better, it's more therapeutic, but there are times when it's just not realistic. So it isn't crucial, it isn't essential. And the 6th, that the person must be alive. No, you can actually forgive dead people. And a lot of times that's what happens with our parents. We don't realize until later that, oh gosh, I had things to forgive. You can still do it. I always say, you got to put words to it, either in a journal or a letter to the person, or talking out loud to the empty chairs, they say, and pretending it's your mother. So it's never too late to give forgiveness. Paula.
When you said about the person doesn't need to be alive, typically in our age, parents are not alive.
Right.
But one of the books that was revelatory for me, primarily after my mom passed, was Forgiving Our Parents, Forgiving Ourselves. And it just nailed it.
Great. Who's the author? Do you remember?
Stoop, S-T-O-O-P.
Okay.
There was another co-author, but I don't remember
Okay.
the name.
Did you folks hear that on Zoom?
No.
Okay. Paula shared with us that when her mother died, she wanted to do forgiveness work, and there was a book that really helped her, entitled Forgiving Your Parents and Forgiving Yourself, by someone named Stoop, S-T-O-O-P. I like the fact that they tied it with forgiving yourself too, because that is an issue that is too often neglected. And we all make mistakes. We all have things to forgive ourselves for, and we deserve to. Okay, where was I? Number 7. Oh, I said this earlier. There's that it's simply a decision. Okay, I'll forgive you. I'm a good person. I will forgive you. It doesn't stick unless you do the work. It might in some cases, but it usually isn't enough. So there's another obstacle to forgiveness, and that is fear. Some people know that if they go within to do the work, they're gonna hurt. You're feeling the pain again for a while, and they're like, no, I'm afraid of that. I don't want to do it. I mean, this may be unconscious, semi-conscious, but it could be fear that keeps the person from going within, which is important for forgiveness. And when I was in practice, I remember my counseling practice. Sometimes in this work, a client would say, Eileen, it sounds like you want me to hurt more by, resurrecting the feelings. And I will say, at times, hurting more will enable you to hurt less. As the famous author Proust said, we are healed by suffering only by experiencing it to the full. If it's still within you and you haven't named it, it's working against you. So the real healing takes place when we feel it, and then we can let go. Okay? Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
How are the Zoom? Yes.
Hi, Emma.
You?
Can you do just a very quick review of the 7 myths? I think I missed 1 or 2.
Sure. Patty asked me to do a quick review of the 7 myths, misconceptions. or fake news, as it might be said, although that phrase is a little dangerous. Okay, a quickie of the 7 myths. Forgive and forget. It does not mean the offense was not serious. It doesn't mean acquittal of the bad behavior. There's no need to reconnect. It doesn't mean you must reconnect with the offender. It's not a gift to the offender. It's a gift to you because you get out of the prison the unforgiveness puts you in. It does not need to be in person or face to face. The person, it can be done posthumously. And number 7, it is not simply a decision. Okay, Patty?
Thank you.
What was the last one?
Number 7, it is not simply a decision.
Okay.
Okay, so then I went into, I talked about the fear. Okay. Then a third category of obstacles, people who live an escapist lifestyle. And what do I mean by that? Somebody who is addicted, it doesn't have to be to a substance. It can be a behavior. Somebody who does something in an out of balance way to keep themselves busy. So they're distracted from the hard stuff, right? Lisa's shaking her head.
So busy all the time.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Exactly. Thank you for validating that. Busyness is a common addiction. And hey, you know what? It feels good. You're getting things done. And it's good if it isn't out of balance. So that's what we want to look at, is the behavior out of balance. It can be a good thing like reading. That's my addiction, by the way. Shopping, exercise. That's not my addiction. Booze, food, anything out of balance will keep you from your inner life. And hence, you're carrying perhaps a lot of grudges. Deb? Absolutely.
So
That's part of it too. You cannot, Debbie said that change is so difficult and you've lived a certain way all your life, you can almost be addicted to that. And as some writer put it, some people look upon their grudges and resentments as treasures, as like they're identified with them. It's part of their identity. So that, yeah, it's familiar, and we go to the familiar, even if it's not healthy. The familiar has a powerful draw on us. So again, so much of all this is to stay awake. In almost every talk I give, I urge the listeners, stay awake. It's easy to sleepwalk through life. Try, be mindful, stay aware. And it just eases everything when you know what's going on. Okay, thank you for that comment, Deb. See how we benefit from each other. Okay, the 4th obstacle is about self-forgiveness. Excuse me while I have water. Self-forgiveness, the big obstacle to that is the person doesn't feel worthy. I don't deserve to forgive myself. I'm not worthy. That is a huge myth because you're born worthy. You're a child of God. You're born intrinsically worthy. And as C.S. Lewis wrote, if you say you're not worthy, you're making yourself a higher tribunal than God. So whether you feel worthy or not, try to suspend your disbelief. You are worthy to forgive yourself. People who have perfectionistic tendencies will have a hard time here. So, okay, moving along. Any questions at this point before we shift gears to what helps?
Can you repeat the quote from C.S. Lewis?
Yes, C.S. Lewis wrote, I don't know the first part, Patty. It's about being worthy. I'll add the first part. if you believe you are unworthy, here's the quote. You are making yourself a higher tribunal than the God who created you.
Okay, thank you.
Got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Hey, Zoom ladies, please interact with us too. Okay, you're part of the group here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to look at, so we're real clear on all these resistances, right, and obstacles to doing this important work. So before we get to the work itself, or the way it looks when you're really on the forgiveness path, we're going to look at what can help you to soften the resistance. What can prepare you before you're actually ready, maybe, to get on the forgiveness path. And before I do that, I want to give you the fleshed out definition of forgiveness, what it entails. Forgiveness is a process, a psychological and spiritual process, during which you acknowledge your hurt, let emotions surface, express.
What was the second one?
Okay, I'll repeat that. And then I'll be getting back to this in a more elaborate way in the last part. But this is, in brief, what a forgiveness journey entails. Okay? You acknowledge, wow, I have been hurt. A lot of people don't want to admit they've been hurt. You're human. It's okay to say, ouch. Acknowledge your hurt, feel the emotions, express the emotions, invoke your willpower. It takes willpower because this is hard. And then consciously choose to let go grudges and resentments. So that is the, what's the word? Substantive definition of what forgiveness is. Any questions about that? Okay, so here are some ways to get yourself ready to do the hard work. The first thing is to be aware that we all share cores of humanity, of the core characteristics. What do I mean by that? We're all good, but we all can be not good. Isn't that true? We're all kind, but we are capable of being unkind. True? So we share, what am I getting at here? We share these core qualities with the person who hurt us. We're all part of the human family. And somehow, when we're aware of that, it doesn't cancel the bad behavior of the other. It doesn't cancel it. But it can help you get ready to forgive. We can be hurt and we can do hurt. And if we remember our own frailty as humans, we're in this together, right? So if you know the story sometimes of the offender, that can help you forgive. Now, at this point, I want to share how I came to forgive my father while he was alive. My father, was extremely angry, negative, a drinker, very verbally abusive, especially to my mother, which used to drive me crazy when I witnessed it. And I'm the oldest of 8. So there was a lot of occasion to hear put downs. Well, I really I wouldn't say I hated my dad, but I did not like him. And well, I don't need to go into more detail there, but what I want to tell you is, how did I come to forgive him? Well, one day his adopted sister, told us his story. He didn't. He was too proud to tell us his vulnerabilities, but just briefly. His mother died in childhood. We knew that. His dad gave him away to his sister to adopt. He got polio when he was young, so his body was kind of withered on one side. He wanted to be a baseball player, so that did that in. That's enough to give you the feel that this guy had a tragic life. He didn't have any help. In those days, nobody said, hey, Ed, maybe you should go to a therapist. You know, that wasn't a word we knew. But at any rate, when I heard Aunt Ruth tell all this, I thought, oh gosh, I can let go of my grudges and resentments. And I actually, and the good thing that happened was I never said to him, Dad, I forgive you. I wasn't that far along in my own journey yet. But what happened is it did change me in that I was able to say to him, Dad, don't talk to Mother like that. She doesn't deserve that. Somehow before, when I was so angry at him, I didn't do that. So there was benefit right away. So that is a long way of saying it helps, especially for serious hurts, deep hurts. It helps to remember the common humanity of the person who. Okay. So the second thing that helps you is believe that it's possible. Humans act in accordance with their beliefs. And if there's a part of you that doesn't believe, I don't believe I can do this, then you're not going to do it. So you need more prep, work to get to that point. Expressing the hurt, even before you get on the path that we will take a look at, expressing the hurt now, here and there even, will help you get ready. Talking about, and a shorthand way of describing how to express the hurt. I know I've shared this in other talks. If it's a repetition, I know you'll be okay with that because as my friend Jean Steele says, humans have to hear things 3 times before they really remember. So here's what I want to give you the formula for emotional self-care. Name, claim, and tame. Name the emotion. Oh, I'm feeling angry about what happened to me. That's naming it, right? Claim it by using the pronoun I. I am angry, not you made me angry. No one can make you feel anything. Their behavior can trigger it, but it's your anger. And then tame. How do you tame it? Express it, talk about it. In very serious cases, you've got to tell your story to someone, sometimes more than once. Now, all of this is like laying groundwork for letting go. You cannot let go of grudges without cleansing the wound, let's call it. Paul? Absolutely. Paula, you ladies didn't hear her, right?
Right.
Did you hear her? I think when there's a question, please remind me to repeat it for the Zoom ladies. Paula noted that sometimes when you need to tell the story, there's no one there that you trust enough, and you must tell it to a trustworthy person. It's great to have a listener, but if there's no good, trustworthy listener, write it out. Write it in a journal or on slips of paper. I bias to journals because it helps you track your journey in a journal. Whatever you write, put a date on it too. I always suggest. So the idea is put words to it. Put words is okay. I'll do one of my favorite quotes from Shakespeare. You might have anger. So in Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare said, my tongue will tell the anger of my heart, or else my heart concealing it will break. And in the old medieval days, a broken heart was a certifiable cause of death. And somehow Willie Shakespeare knew that. Yes, putting words is very powerful. And then begin to say out loud, I'm working on releasing. I want to release you. I want to let go, because we can get attached to the grudges. As Debbie pointed out, we have to begin to break that attachment. Okay, now those are ways to begin to prepare. And I forgot the most important one. Forgive me. I have to forgive myself, right? Pray. If you're a prayer, you know the dictate to err is human, to forgive is divine. We need to bring the Lord aboard, whoever the Lord is for you. Invite the higher power in to help you. This isn't a do-it-yourself project. So before I get to the next part, which is we're going to really look at the journey, although we glimpsed it here and there. Questions, comments? Brent, you're smiling. Do you want to say anything? Okay, I'm glad you're back. Anyone else? Paula.
The state wants to use someone he did not know how.
That's interesting. That's a good metaphor. Paula said, when I was talking about I release you, I will let go, she said it reminds her of a person leaning on a crutch, not realizing they could throw that crutch away and walk well and be free. Be free. Yes. Yes, sure.
It's such a long process. I wonder if you understand that you forgive, but they wash back over. So you forgive again and again, again. It is a process.
Yes.
It's not something that just because you say, okay, I forgive you, that it won't, it'll go away and be okay.
Forever. Yeah. Okay. Sharon makes a very good point. She said that even when you really forgive, something could happen and that washes over you again. And you need to go back to the drawing board and forgive again. But the good news is, Sharon, once you do this initial work, when it comes back again, you can get hold of it faster, right? And forgive faster.
I think you.
Exactly.
When you're-
Awareness.
Yeah, when you're that's what is in your
And
front.
on your
front.
lens, yes.
But once you forgive them, when it comes back again, it's sort of like a bell going off. Okay, I get this. I need to go back into process.
Yes, exactly. Well put. Yes. I just remembered another way to get you ready is to begin to change the thoughts. To, you know, before you do this work, the thoughts about your offender would be, I'm so mad, I'm angry, what a, you know, negative thoughts. Okay, so when you get serious, I got to change. Then try to change the thoughts to more general thoughts like I will forgive. I want to forgive. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. I want to be willing. Remember, willingness is the real beginning, a willingness. And even being willing doesn't mean you're there. But I believe when you're willing, then and you intend to, then that's when you really get a lot of help from the Lord that, okay, I intend to do this and I need help. Paul? No, please. What? Yes. Why are you sorry? Oh, right. Oh, I like it. I like it. So Paula has another metaphor for us, and you don't need to be sorry. I'm glad. She's creative. She said, when you go on a journey, you need to put your shoes on. And so what we're talking about, I'm going to use that next time, Paul. I'll give you credit. Before you go on a journey, you need to put shoes on for the walk, unless you're a barefoot Contessa. And so what I'm doing with what I'm trying to convey is you can get ready. You can do things that get you, that are putting the shoes on. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sharon said it's like putting on the armor of God. There's in scripture about the armor. Thank you, ladies. Anyone else want to comment?
I have a comment.
Yes, Patty.
So I was thinking about the story that you related about your father
Yes.
and, his anger and emotional abuse. And then a little bit ago, Paula had mentioned about a person holding onto a crutch and, that analogy. And so I was thinking, I guess oftentimes our resentments or grudges can we use those as justification, maybe for, having a chip on your shoulder or being negative or maybe being mean or whatever. I'm trying to like connect those dots. And I'm just thinking that, sometimes people say, oh, I can't change. But maybe the reality is, they're holding on to those things so tightly. And that justifies their behavior to maybe act out or be negative or be hurtful.
Yes. Did you all hear that? Oh, good. I would have a hard time repeating that. I'm glad you heard that. Yeah. So Patty's point is people use their hurt as a justification, in effect, to stay hurt or to explain other bad behaviors of their own. So again, that's a form of being attached to the grudges and treating them as gems. Like, I don't know. This is part of my identity now. Not that you think that, but it becomes part of your identity. Thank you, Patty. I'm going to tell a story now of a true story of a real forgiveness process that will give you a picture of what it entails, and then we'll break it down, okay? And again, I've told the story in this room probably a long time ago, though. It's in my book. Debbie has my book. It's called Mary Forgives Walt 25 Years Later. And this is a true story. When I had a practice, a counseling practice, a woman called and said, I need to come in. I want to be a nun, but the Mother Superior won't let me in until I forgive my abuser. So she came in. I'll call her Mary. Mary came in every Thursday for 1 year, and then she was ready to confront the abuser. Here's the background. When she was 4, her mother was killed in a car crash. While the family was at the funeral, she was with a babysitter who wasn't watching, and the next door neighbor took her up to his garage apartment and sexually abused her almost every day until she was 16 and became suicidal, and a teacher noticed it and went to the hospital, and it was the ending. Okay. So here's what it took. Now think about what she's forgiving. Think about it. 12 years and all the loss of a childhood, loss of it. Well, every stage of her life was lost because of Walt. So what she did in my office was tell the story in great detail. The more painful the story, the more detail has to be described, because pain is caught in the details. I've had victims of sexual abuse saying to me, like, I remember what the wallpaper was like, Eileen. Every detail that you share helps you. It's therapeutic. So for 1 year, she came in faithfully. She cried. I cried. I never heard such a tragic story. And after about a year, she said, okay, I'm ready. And I want to do it in person. So I said, well, wow, that's brave of you. I'm happy that you want to. So we tried to get him in the office. We called him, she called him, I called him. He said, I don't know what you're talking about, and hung up. So she said, Eileen, I'm going there to where he lives. He still lived next door to where she lived. And I said, Mary, you need to take someone with you to go there. And she agreed. And no one would go with her. So she said to me, will you go with me? And I, frankly, was scared. And the truth was, we aren't supposed to leave the office with a client. It's a boundary. So I told her that. I said, I can't, Mary. She said, ask your supervisor. And the supervisor said yes. And so despite my beating heart, I walked away. I'm sorry, ladies, I walked away from you. So despite my fear, I still remember that's when I started praying, actually. That was in the, I think, mid-90s. At any rate, we're driving there. I can still see myself in the car. It was blue. She called it the little blue nun. Was there a story of that? There was a series on or something. At any rate, she said, don't worry, Eileen, I have everyone praying for us. So we get to the door, the house. And she said, before we knock, I want you to see where it happened. See, here's the detail. It was, the steps were outside, and we walked up the steps over the garage, and I could see the room through the glass. She said, see, there's the table. So again, this is all makes it so therapeutic, but how often do you get that much detail? At any rate, so we knock on the door, and then I got calm because Walt was a little old man. And I thought, okay, we can handle this if he gets belligerent. So we walk in through his bedroom, big picture of Jesus. Then we walk into a little round den and we sit down. And she says, do you know why we're here? And he said, no. She said, it's because of what you did to me. He said, I never did anything. I was a good neighbor. So we're sitting there, and I had warned her, you may not get what you want. But then, maybe through the grace of God, she said to him, who did it to you, Walt? And he started crying. And he said, will you forgive me? He asked her, will you forgive me? And then he asked me. And she said, that's why we came, Walt. And so when we left, we both got outside the door and we both jumped up in the air. And that's the first time I realized what it meant to jump for joy. We did not plan that. It was just so spontaneous for both of us. So that is a story of heavy duty forgiveness. So it entails some of what I want you to consider doing. Okay. Any questions about that before I thank you for listening? It's probably, I'm very grateful for that experience for myself, because to witness that kind of forgiveness was a real gift, and to witness her courage. She had more courage than her therapist. Did Deb?
Sometimes we don't think what we're forgiving is big enough. Like that girl's journey was huge. So
Yes.
sometimes I think, or I should say, I feel that I don't have enough to validate some asking for the forgiveness because it's not big enough.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Debbie has just made a very good point. She said, of course, Mary's journey was momentous and her huge,
Yes.
but not all journeys are like that. And if they're not that significant, Debbie said,
We don't feel worthy of wanting.
we don't even feel like it's worthy of us to want forgiveness.
Ask for,
So, but that's a great thing to raise, Debbie, because we're not measuring our hurt with Mary's. The reason I share it is to show you the journey of talking, crying, feeling the
And
feelings.
sometimes it takes a long time. It took her a year.
It took her a year. And we can't predict that. There's no formula for that. It's a process. It takes time. Certainly, don't let her story discourage you. I wanted to encourage you, because if she can forgive Walt, hopefully our trauma was much less, our hurt, but it's still important to forgive for our own well-being and to give ourselves the gift of inner freedom. Forgiveness brings inner freedom. Oh, Donna. She did. Donna asked if she became a nun. She did. I think her name, well, I can't tell you. Yes, she did, and that's wonderful. Yes. Okay, so using that as a model, so to speak, I just want to review the obvious. So on your journeys to forgiveness, I encourage you to pray first and throughout, and then to do the work of naming, claiming, and taming the emotions. Invite the feelings to surface. Some people have trouble with that. They know they're there intellectually. Just do your best to feel them. Invite them to surface: tears, anger, grief, betrayal, of self-forgiveness, maybe guilt. If you still feel stuck, tell that story, maybe more than once. Sometimes once isn't enough. And remind yourself of the oneness we have as the human family with the perpetrator of your hurt. And on this, as you journey through these stages, let's say, hopefully you'll get to the point where you're starting to feel the freedom, like, I can do this. I think I can do it. So if you get to that point, see if you can say it out loud. I forgive you for X. Or you might need to say, I wish I could forgive. I'm still trying. So the key here is don't get down on yourself if it doesn't take. Do it again. Make sure having a listener can help a lot. If you haven't had a listener to the story, try to find a listener. Let's see if I want to say more about that. Oh, I want to talk about self-forgiveness in a minute, but is there more about that? Paula?
When you were saying about being stuck. sometimes
Stuck.
you do get stuck.
Yes.
And even if you have a listener, don't have a listener, or remind who you are. Every day.
Yes. Paula said, even if you have a listener, if you don't, remind yourself that you are loved. In this case, I'm assuming you mean by the Lord. We are always loved by our Creator. Yes. Good point, Paul. Get that kind of support. Lisa?
What happens if you haven't worked through it, but you see this person again and it just triggers all the nastiness that this person, has done to you and other people? And what do you, even if you want to stay away from that person?
Oh, I hear you. Sometimes we can't stay. Well, Lisa has asked, what happens if you kind of want to forgive, but you encounter the person who hurt you and it triggers lots of, you used to work, a lot of negativity, upheaval.
The same story. You start to relive the same
Reliving.
story. This person has done this to you.
Okay. So that's a great question. Now you have a couple options. I mean, depending on the circumstance, this could be a time to say to the person, that would take a lot of courage though. I'm aware of what's happening to me right now. I'm reliving the hurt you caused me and I'm working on forgiving you. Or you just realize I better go back and do my work of forgiveness because look how it triggered me. Any other ideas for Lisa about what she could do? What do you?
Third option, not to bother with, not to bother with the person.
Oh, well,
That's what I feel.
of course. The third option is you don't have to bother with the person, especially if they're not in your family. See, a lot of times the person's in the family, which complicates it. So if you can basically remember what I said, one of the myths was that we have to stay connected. No, if you can totally cut the person off and that works for you, I encourage it. Does that make sense? Anyone want to comment? This is challenging, but it's real. Yeah, I can see how that would happen. So you need to think about your options, maybe, Lise. It would take a lot of courage to do it right there. To say, hey, what you did to me is stirring in me again, and I'm angry, but I'm trying to forgive you. That would be hard, wouldn't it?
But that lets them know as well that you are still, that you're hurt, you're working on it, and I'm trying to forgive you to get
Free,
away from
to
that.
get free. If you could do that, that would be wonderful. If you could say it to the person right then, it would take courage, but I would value that. I would affirm that. It would be strengthening for you. And it lets them know where you are. It sets a boundary. Communication, we can protect ourselves with words, but so often we won't use them. But they can protect us by setting boundaries. It's not okay. The way you treated me was not okay. And I don't want to be near you, or whatever the words are. If you can use the words, wonderful. Good, Lise. I wish you the best.
But it doesn't mean they're gonna receive you. So you have to feel, even if they receive your message, you still communicate it.
Oh, right. They may. Oh, good point. Debbie
Yeah.
said that doesn't mean they're going to say, oh, yeah, I remember.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. They might. Yeah.
But as long as in your,
As long as
that
you,
you feel good that you were able to communicate.
Yeah.
it, regardless if they received it or not.
yes, good point, Deb. It's sometimes people will say, I'll say, well, why didn't you speak about that? And they'll say, well, it wouldn't have
Made it-
changed him. And I say, we don't speak to change people. If it does, that's great. But we speak primarily to strengthen our sense of self and to get more grounded in our own reality. And we need to be strengthened. And we have strength. And what I they're beginning to close up. But, okay, I regret that we don't have longer to wind up. So I do have a little reading. Oh, wait, I've got to talk about self-forgiveness though. Let me move to that. I'm not sure I said enough. So with the self-forgiveness, and I'll tell you what, I'm in a place now where I have so much to forgive myself for. Why? Because I'm rereading my journals. I have 38 journals. So when you get to my age, the literature says, do a life review. You come to terms with what needs, tie loose ends, forgive, say thanks to people that helped you. So I am blessed in that I have a map, all these journals, but guess what's happening? I'm reading the early journals and I'm thinking, oh my God, Eileen, you did that. Not that I hurt someone per se, but a mistake. Like, why didn't you do this or that? You could have done X or Y. So I really have to practice what I preach and tell myself, Eileen, you did the best you could at the time. You weren't as aware then. So trust me, I'm doing it. It's not easy. I made mistakes with my kids when they were young. I didn't know how to be a good parent. I've told them that and I've asked for their forgiveness and they agreed. Yeah, Mom, you really did make mistakes. They didn't let me off the hook. So it was good for both of us. So whatever your issues might be about self-forgiveness, do it. You are worth it, because otherwise you're clogging your inner space with self-rejection. And that's not okay. Agreed? And if you're a perfectionist, this will be harder for you. Fortunately, I'm not. I'm okay with being imperfect. We all are, really. Okay, so I regret I have to hurry, but they're closing out the lights, girls.